Okay, so we're going to have a bit of a focus on stress for the rest of this session. So there are pages in your book that cover what stress is, and I think it would be really useful just when you get a minute or two just to stand and read through those. So the first 2 pages in the book focus quite a bit on what goes on in your body when you're stressed. And we found from doing these groups for quite a long time that can be a very different way of thinking about stress to how a lot of us do. We tend to, a lot of the time I think of stress as something that goes on in your head, or maybe a sign that you're not coping or that you're not dealing with things particularly well. And we find that people start to get stressed about being stressed and all of those unhelpful thinking styles that we've talked about before start to come back in. But I think it's really useful to have a look at those couple of pages and to just appreciate actually what goes on for you physically in your body when you're feeling stressed. Because stress is it's a whole body experience. And part of the reason that that's really useful to talk about in a physical health setting with people who have a lot of symptoms related to their illness anyway is because as you'll see when we start to go through some of that stuff, a lot of the things that happen physically when you have long-term chronic stress actually can look quite similar to the symptoms of your physical condition. And that's why it's so important that if you can manage some of the stress, if you can kind of contain some of that, the overall experience of your physical issues might be improved somewhat. So there's those couple of pages for you to read in your workbook. There's also a video that we're going to link to as well, just looking at what stress is, why you feel stressed, what normal responses to stress are. So what's really useful now, I think, is to have a little bit of think about what things personally cause us stress.
Okay. So I'm going to introduce you to the idea of something that we call the stress beaker or stress bucket, as other people call it. And what I'd like you to do, Marie, is imagine that we've got a beaker with water in it, and every stressor that you experience adds a bit more water into that beaker. These can be unpleasant things like our symptoms, or physical events like being stuck in a traffic jam or having a shopping list to get through, or unhelpful ways of thinking, as we've talked about before, about our symptoms. But there can also be good things like arranging a day out. Those things can also cause us stress. In fact, just about anything in the right circumstances can cause a bit of stress or can add a bit of water into this bucket. So stress is defined as demands that are placed upon us that kind of exceed our perceived ability to be able to cope with them. So, you might be bumbling along okay, and somebody rings up and thinks that they've got something lovely for you to do. Would you like to go out for a coffee, Marie? And actually that might be the one thing that just adds a bit too much water into the bucket. Although it's a nice thing to do, it might actually increase your stress levels. So one of the ways that we can start to look at this, and I think you'll be getting used to this by now, is taking a step back from things and trying to look at things slightly differently, is to think about drawing this out as an actual stress bucket. Now, I'm not a very good artist, so if we say that this is kind of your beaker or your bucket, in which things are going to be poured into that. So this is our beaker. This is our bucket. Now we need to think already about what's already in your stress beaker before we then start adding other things in. So already in your beaker you will have some stress, some stuff that you're managing with in terms of your symptoms. Can you remind me what symptoms you struggle with?
Mostly pain and fatigue. They're the big ones. I mean, there's other stuff as well, like feeling dizzy and faint a lot of the time, but it's pain and fatigue that are the really problematic ones.
So if we say that already in your beaker, before we've even thought about those life stressors, you've already got an element of stress that you're dealing with on a daily basis, under the umbrella of persistent symptoms. And for you, that's pain and fatigue.
And I think that goes up and down, because I think, obviously, when I have a flare-up, I think that's probably way up here. But I think even even on a good day, even though they're never quite gone, I think even on a good day, I'm still worried about it.
Yeah, so that's
So,
important
yeah.
to note, isn't it? What I'll do is I'll just put a little arrow. Did you think it goes about halfway up?
Yeah, at least.
So actually there's the potential for your persistent symptoms to actually increase in themselves, the amount of fluid that's in your beaker. And this could be flare-ups, as you put it. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you're already managing more stress than others because of your persistent symptoms. If we think about other things that cause stress for you, what other stuff would come in on top of your symptoms?
Well, it's all the day-to-day stuff. There's trying to get the children up in the morning, tonight to school, and having dinner ready for them when they come home.
So there's everyday things, so included in that are the things that you need to do for the children, preparation of meals.
And just housework and things like that. Because it's never finished, is it?
No, it's always ongoing. So housework, chores, things like that. What other things influence how much stress you have in here?
I suppose it's like the other stuff that we've talked about is kind of the thoughts that I have about some of that stuff then, and some of the feelings, like feeling like I'm not doing a good enough job, or worrying about whether I need to ask somebody else to do something for me.
So thoughts, feelings, worry.
Yeah, I'm feeling really guilty when I can't do it. And there's other things as well, isn't there? I mean, there's the news, and there's worries about money that are always there, especially now that I can't work.
So finances.
And that I haven't been able to see my friends for a long time because I can't really get out anymore. And I worry about that because my best friend's going through a divorce and I feel like I'm not there for her. And I worry about just drifting really and losing those friendships.
So these are kind of internal sort of pressures or stresses that go on for you that cause you to worry. And I guess worry in itself can become quite an exhausting, stressful kind of process, can't it?
Yeah, I feel like I worry about everything.
So we could almost have lines coming out from worry.
And I worry a lot about my health. And even on a good day, I worry that it's not going to stay like that. And especially if there's something coming up or there's something I need to do, where it's important that I feel well enough.
What about, sometimes people have other kind of external pressures, so things like other demands placed upon the time, perhaps from friends, from work, from other caring responsibilities you might have for parents or elderly relatives. Do you have any of those pressures?
A lot of that. I feel like I'm never quite doing enough for parents. My sister makes me feel like that a lot because she lives further away, so she thinks it's easier for me to be able to do that stuff. And I tried to tell her that, that I can't just go around there every day. It's hard enough to do everything I need to at home.
So there's some pressures there from parents or your sister in terms of placing demands upon your time to perhaps do other tasks and chores for other people.
There's stuff that's not an emergency a lot of the time, but I feel like I need to do it because there's nobody else who lives as nearby, and I don't work now, so I've got a lot of time, and I think it looks to everybody else like I should be the one doing this stuff. If I do that, it means I can't do stuff on my own time.
Gosh, and that's even making me feel stressed as you're talking about that. So that's quite a lot of demands, isn't it? So demands from others and demands upon your time, increase stress. And of course, what's happening here, do you notice, as we're as we're talking through this and I'm filling this beaker.
There's not very much space left, and especially when I started to have a flare up.
Yeah. It gets pretty full, doesn't it? So what do you think would need to happen? What would be helpful if you notice that all this is coming in and your bucket's getting fuller and fuller, or your beaker's getting fuller and fuller?
Yeah.
What do you think would be helpful?
I think first of all, it's really helpful just to look at that and to think about it like that. I suppose some of those things I could probably address a little bit now that we've talked about things like asking for help.
Yeah.
And not dealing with that stuff all on my own.
So these would be what we would call sort of stress relievers, although you've got things coming in that are adding to your stress and adding to how full your beaker or bucket is. There are some things that would act as stress relievers, and you're already saying that actually one of those things, I'm just going to put a little arrow down here saying stress. Relievers. One of those things would be to ask for help, is that right? Anything else that you notice that might be a stress reliever for you?
I suppose trying to find time to relax, especially when I've got a really busy day and there's a lot of things I need to do. And that's some of the stuff we said about pacing before, isn't it?
Can I put pacing on there as well? A stress reliever? So asking for help, time to relax, pacing. Any particular activities that you do if you had time to relax?
Just sitting down with a cup of tea and reading a book for a while. And not feeling like I should be doing something else.
So giving yourself permission to take some time to relax, perhaps having a cup of tea, reading a book.
Yeah.
Anything else that you think might relieve stress?
I think some of that mindfulness that we've been doing.
Can I pop that on?
Yeah. Maybe just talking to people a bit more. Not always asking for help, but just telling people what I'm feeling.
Talking and explaining how you feel.
Or just phoning my friends.
You're coming up with lots of ideas now. So asking for help, talking, explaining how you feel, time to relax, pacing, having a cup of tea, reading, phoning friends, perhaps doing some mindfulness. What's that feeling like now as we're looking at these stress relievers?
It feels a bit more hopeful. I think it's quite hard to look at everything like that. Because it feels at first like there's not very much you can do about that, but there actually is.
That makes you feel hopeful, yeah. So what we're actually doing here, if we're going to finish our little sort of analogy or our bucket metaphor, is what we're doing here is we're noticing that stresses are adding water into our beaker or bucket and filling it up. And the stress relievers are almost acting like a bit of a tap here. So we can try and drain some of the water out of the bucket. And of course, if you're taking part in these stress relieving activities, we're going to start to bring some of this down. And that's all the more important if, when managing your persistent symptoms, you're tipping into flare up. If we can reduce some of the stress that's in the bucket in the first place by engaging in the stress relievers, putting a tap on the bucket, then hopefully that will bring that general level of stress
Okay,
down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. There is a page in your book that's got a blank stress beaker on, and it might be worth your while just having a little think about, hang on a minute, what are my stresses? What is it that fills up my stress beaker or bucket? And what things do I already have in place that might help me to relieve stress? And maybe just make some notes on there, and when your practitioner calls you, you could have a chat with them about that.
Okay, thanks.